this has happened several times with us. We have actually staged a house that was virtually staged. And so homes that are virtually staged, we call the bait and switch. And so you look at it online and you're like, oh wow, it looks pretty cool. Looks everything looks pretty nice. And then they actually do a showing, arrive at the house, and it's empty. And so now what enticed them online to come into the house is now just empty rooms. And there is nothing worse that can happen to a realtor than a bait and switch.
Every listing has a story. This is the Market Ready podcast.
Incredibly honored and excited to have an amazing guest this week on the Market Ready podcast because of the fact that this is one of the best stories I've heard in a while. And I have a secret to share with everybody. My wife and I love watching YouTube police body cam videos because there's something about watching drunk people get arrested that makes me so grateful that I don't drink anymore. But no, that
That's
it
awesome.
makes me so grateful that that is not a part of my life where I have to worry about ending up on a YouTube video.
Scared
But I
straight.
want to, yeah, right, Scared Straight. It's like my own teen program. I want to introduce everybody to an amazing guest today, Damon Vaz. Damon, I'm going to start by saying, or at least asking, you are an interior designer, yes?
We are home stagers with
Home stagers
yes, with an emphasis of interior design. Yes,
of interior design. And for those of you that are listening and can't see, Damon has all of his shields because Damon used to be a police officer. Is that correct?
that's correct.
That is
23
correct.
years.
So
23 years.
you mentioned that 23 years in law enforcement, and thank you for your service, by the way, because it is an incredibly difficult job. As I know, I actually was a police constable many years ago for a town called Pelham in New York,
Okay.
and tremendous respect for the work that you do.
Oh, thanks.
But you mentioned this, and all I thought to myself was, how does someone go from a law enforcement career into interior to staging, interior design, that thought process? Like, do you just walk into enough domestic calls where you're just like, I'm sorry, that couch is hideous. And by the way, what are you two fighting about? Like, how does that transition actually work? Tell me how you got here.
That is funny. I tell you what. Right now, I think the way things turned out was I retired from law enforcement, and when I retired from law enforcement, my wife always had an interest in interior design. It's like our house used to change every quarter. So with any holiday season, our house would change. And then after retirement, I got into coaching and did a couple other jobs and just kind of was just living my life carefree as my wife had a full-time job. But her side hustle became staging. And I was totally happy with that because it was a way for her to release her urge to shop and go out and hit furniture stores and look at all the new trends. And she would help out one of our neighbors who was a realtor stage her properties. And it was just a very small, I hardly ever got involved, didn't have to get involved. And that went on for several years. And then my wife was laid off. And
Mm,
when she was laid off, um, it, in her line of work, it was kind of a routine for in her industry for people to get laid off or businesses to acquire the business that she worked for. So it was very frequent over the course of our marriage. Um, but this time, we're getting older in age, and the jobs didn't come back as quick. And next thing you know, we were like, well, we need to fall back on something. What can we do? And my wife is a stager. So then I said, okay, well, I'm going to join the business with you and we're going to do this thing. And so that's how it initially started.
and man, what an amazing, successful ride you all have had. I was incredibly impressed by looking at your site, your background, and all the different elements, and especially though making that transition to being able to support people in a different way. Because again, law enforcement background, you were a sergeant, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the law enforcement background and being a sergeant, which is in the service of people in a community, right? To making a transition to being in service of people, right, in their homes and how they sort of make it a home in a lot of different ways for them. And everyone's different in that sense. So Tell me if you don't mind, like what in your world, when you're thinking about getting a home market ready, when you're thinking about getting something prepared so that other people may see it for what it could be, may love it. What are some of the first things that you look at when you start actually kind of looking around at the inside space of a home?
Well, normally, first thing we do is look at the first impression of the home. So as soon as we get out of the car at the house, we're already looking at the outside of the house and just kinda taking it all in. Does it have a good curb appeal? Does it look good? Is it catching my eye already? And then I just kinda store that in the back of my head. And then, of course, as we enter the home and we look in the home, we're looking for that first impression of what the home has to offer in ways of its potential, and then what needs to be kind of tweaked or changed a little bit. And so we normally, we give, free consultations and we walk the home with the client and the realtor and just kinda give them our tips because we've been in so many homes and we see how fast they sell or don't sell, and we kinda really have become accustomed to what works and what doesn't work. And so normally and it doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes you walk into a home and there's just hideous paint or the or the carpet is really outdated. Things just might look like not like they should, uh, to today's market standards. And we just let them know. We often tell our realtor, "Let us play the bad cop," and that's where that comes in. "Realtor, you're the good cop. Let us come in and be the bad cop." Because the realtor never wants to say anything negative to their client. They don't even want them to feel any way disturbed in any kind of way. So that's where we come in, and we don't have a bone to pick in the whole fight of the thing. We're just like, "Hey, we're here to make your house sell, and we're gonna give you the best information to make it look great. So if you take our advice, it'll be awesome, yeah."
That's awesome. Have you ever walked into a home that was so ugly you just tased the homeowner?
No,
No, I'm just kidding.
not I have I have thought of, the lipstick on a pig comes out a lot of times.
So that's it's a very interesting. You mentioned the idea of something being appealing, let's just say, to a prospective buyer. What are the things currently nowadays that make something appealing to prospective buyers?
Well, to me, it's, the openness and airiness of things, how things are bright. Do things look bright? Do things look inviting? And do things do not look dated? People don't want dated, and they want turnkey now, especially here in Colorado. They want a turnkey right now product. And so we come in and we kinda see things that are immediately, "Uh-oh, this needs to be changed," or "You need to look at this." And so we just give all the recommendations that we possibly could give to give them the best looking potential listing.
How do people react to typically, because my background's in behavioral psychology and elements of engaging and work with people. It can't be comfortable always to walk into somebody's home and say, you know what, you may want to get rid of the hideous mango colored carpet that's been here since the Reagan administration.
Well, between my wife and I, that's where she always has to temper me because I don't have that filter.
Yeah.
Being in law enforcement, I just kinda tell you how it is and what we're gonna do and what needs to be done. And I really don't, and I'm not telling them anything to hurt their feelings. And I always come off across like, "Hey, don't take it personally. We're here to help you the best that we can, and we're not trying to be offensive." And we kinda let them know that, sure, you may absolutely love, cobalt blue or that lime green. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to appease everyone that might walk into your home. And
I
so
love it.
when we make those suggestions, we come up with that preface first. So I don't think they take it personally. We're just letting them know we're here to help. It's nothing personal. And usually when we start off with things like, take your personal pictures down, they kind of understand that if they want me to take the personal pictures down, that we're probably going to want the lime green painted a more neutral color.
Makes sense. Have you ever had anybody get wildly offended?
I can't think of anybody being offended. Usually what happens is the client is in agreement with us. They kinda like, "Oh, I know, I thought that would be," or, we kinda get that acknowledgement of what we're saying that they agree with it, and it was just kind of their thing and not everybody's thing.
It's interesting. Do you get the folks that are, because I see this a lot with the agents that I work with in my world, where they actually want to stay in the home rather than sell it because what you did to it was so good that they actually think about keeping it?
I tell you what, that we hear that comment all the time. They can't believe it's their house. So after the staging is done, they're like, just our last staging we just did last week, they were like, "I can't believe this is my house." And, uh, and we looked at that as a very good compliment because that's the goal. We are just
Right.
trying to get people's eyes to bounce in places where we don't want them to focus on, and we wanna bounce them to the highlights of the home. And when you live there, you live there for you and your comfort. And so you might actually put your TV right in front of the big box window that's very appealing to all of us, but you're
Right.
blocking it with your TV. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
simple things like that. We may want the eyes to bounce towards the ceiling because they're high and they're awesome. Or you know what I mean? So we do things to make the house as much appealing as we possibly can, and it might not fit into the way that they lived.
Right. How do people manage that? How do someone manage currently the idea of we're making this home look show ready, move in ready, right, market ready, but we don't live this way day to day. So how do folks balance that?
Uh, for the most part, I think I just hear gratefulness. People are grateful, um, and in a strange way, I can see their thought process churning in their head, like, "Wow, I would have never done that." Because oftentimes we stage with their furniture. If they're living in the home, we will move things around so that it's appealing and highlights the things in the house that we want to highlight. And then they look at their own furniture and they're like, I would have never thought to move my couch here to there or move that table from here to there. And so I've never had one person say they hate it. It's always, I never would have thought of that. That's great. It's kind of that positive reinforcement.
That's awesome. Do you find that when people are thinking about getting their home market ready in the work that you do you find that the agent sort of stays out of it, or do you find the agent wants to get involved and also help sort of direct?
I would say 95% of the time, the agent stays out of it.
Okay.
And we've only had a few agents that want to help out. And when they do that, I mean, they've got experience too. They've been doing this for years and years and years, and they also have their input. But I just kind of remind them, hey, let's keep the roles separate if we can. Let's keep you being the good cop. Let us be the bad cop. We don't want any negativity to fall upon you. It could fall upon us because at the end of the day, we're just trying to make the place look great. And then that person is building a relationship with their client for life, so we don't want to ruin that in any kind of way at all.
Very cool. I also was super curious to hear from your perspective from, when we think about the different things that people can do to a home. What are some of the most important changes somebody could make when it comes to interior design? Like if you ranked them, if you just said like historically, I'm going to rank 1, 2, 3, what would be like the top 3 most important changes?
As far as changing the home, it's got to be anything that looks dated. And so oftentimes the carpet or the flooring is kind of number one. Then you got when you move into the kitchen, if the kitchen looks very dated, maybe refacing or resurfacing the kitchen cabinets or just depending on their budgets, what they can do. But I would say and actually number one is always paint of some sort. Number two is usually flooring, carpeting, or the flooring. And then we just go from there. Kitchens can show the age of the home. Countertops, uh, the doorknobs and the door fittings are just a thing that can just, I think in the 80s, most of the home builders were in love with brass and gold. And so today people aren't really into that. And so, yeah, we just look at little things like that. But before we have that conversation about that, or usually as this conversation goes, the 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 idea from them says, "Wow, this might cost a lot of money to do."
Right.
And then that's when we come in with, "Well, we have a solution for you for that too."
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. I know you actually have a property yourself that you're currently flipping.
Yes.
So what is give me an example of one of the ways that people can help reduce cost.
Well, oftentimes we do talk about the notable and the ability to pay at close.
Okay.
And we talk about that all the time. We're saying, "Hey, we understand money's tight. We understand the economy right now is rough, and I know that you want to move and make this listing look as best as you can. But if you don't have the money that's just available to you right now, we have a pay at close option through Notable.
Okay.
and they all almost always are second or question that, like, what is that, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And then we have to go through the whole thing of how notable works and whatnot. But once they understand, they look at it as like a really positive vibe, good option for them.
If you're looking at that as an option, right, and you're thinking about the different ways that benefits people, is there a world in which one could argue, and I'm just throwing this out there, I don't know the answer, but is there a world in which one could argue that the money that you would be spending to upgrade a property, right, to make it market ready, can actually increase what you're getting for the property by enough to even offset what you just spent?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, and we talk about that all the time. So, let's just break it down as simple as staging. So we say, if you're gonna just spend, a couple grand on staging, that could yield you, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 times more in the listing of your home. And then I always bring up this, and I even had a post about this. Your first price reduction, if your house doesn't sell within the first week or 2, is gonna be 2 or 3 times more than what it would have cost to stage. And so, that first price reduction is like 10 grand, 15 grand, where you're only paying a couple grand to stage your house, which you could have yielded that from the get-go just by spending the money.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that when you talk to clients, is there anything else that you kind of explain to them like that around sort of the benefits of the process?
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole idea is, and what they don't really understand is that in the first your house is gonna usually sell within the first 10 showings, if it's priced right and all the other things and everything's aligned in the way it's supposed to be, right? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make an emotional connection for that buyer. And if you can achieve that, then you have a very high percent of selling your home within the first 10 days of its listing. And then if you could sell your home quickly, then we could show them how you're gonna save money down the road. I mean, so the idea is let's sell it just as fast as we can. Let's make it as good as possible, as amazing as possible, and let's build an emotional connection. And then oftentimes when you do build that emotional connection, you'll have more than one person bidding on the home, which is a benefit to them because if you got other people bidding, then we have a little bidding war and you get more money for your listing. So we explain those benefits to them, and once we, explain to them the totality of what they're doing and how it will benefit them, um, usually they're ready to move forward.
What's a mistake that you think that or something people get wrong when they think about staging a home? What's one of those most common or more common things that you hear or the thing that people kind of go, it's this way, and you're like, not really.
I feel like the negative I don't really hear negatives about staging. It's just kind of like an omission, of especially from the realtor community of why do I need to do that? And I think they don't really haven't thought about the why as much.
Right. Right.
And then what I've noticed, and I don't mean this as a dig on any realtors, but there's a difference between the realtors who stage all the time and the realtors who don't. And I follow
Interesting.
a lot of realtors and I see, who's staging and who's not.
Hmm.
And it just seems like the people who stage all the time just constantly have listings, just boom, boom, boom. And then the ones that you try to convince that staging is it just doesn't seem like they're advertising as many listings as the other ones. Um, but I haven't had a negative, like I tell my wife that and I tell realtors this too. No one has said the house couldn't sell because the staging was so bad.
Right. Right.
Like that hasn't happened. I've
Right.
never heard that as an excuse. So only thing staging does is make things better.
100%. And look, I tell a lot of my clients too, staging is marketing. That's
Yeah,
what it is. It's another form of marketing.
sure.
You're trying to help somebody understand the perception of what living in this home would feel like,
Exactly.
right? Your storytelling. And in that process, as part of your marketing and part of your outreach, think about the number of different places that it touches. So in your world, you stage and then comes photography, then comes a Matterport or 3D tours, then comes these other areas. So we have this arm's length view, right? So you have hundreds of thousands of people that are looking at this now on the internet. You have another collection of people that may be doing an immersive tour, right? Which is another layer deeper that they're experiencing the property.
Sure.
Then they decide, well, maybe we should go check this out. So now they're physically coming and they're engaged in the property now at a separate level. Yeah. And they're having a different type of relationship and experience with the property itself. And so from this perspective, you're looking at 3 different touch points off of one body of work.
Exactly.
Right? And it is a perception that I think people have. And I think for a lot of agents, Damon, that I would be curious to know your thoughts on this. I think for a lot of agents that don't stage, what I hear from them is, I don't because I don't want to have to pay for it. And there's this belief that if I'm not paying for it for my client, then why would I even offer this? I'm not doing it. Tell me a little bit from your perspective about, and I know we've talked about how there's products out there that can help with that, but just even that idea of a perception from an agent that, well, I don't want to have to pay for it.
Well, that is, I think, a very big deal here in Colorado. And I remember when I first, joined the Notable team or used Notable as an option for our company, it wasn't very, pay at close wasn't a big thing here in Colorado. And then once we became aware of it and started getting involved, we would hear that all the time from realtors is I don't stage because I don't want to pay for it, or it's too confusing. I have to do, I would have to raise my rates and blah, 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 and all these different things that have to happen
Right.
until you explain to them the actual program and how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I would say for the last year, my wife and I have really tried hard to inform and educate these realtors that, the rest of America doesn't do it the way you do it here. The rest of America usually makes the client pay for the staging. So it's an uphill battle here in Colorado for us to convince realtors of that. But the ones that are our clients, once they figure it out, I mean, it almost becomes like an automatic thing now. Now they're kind of like, why haven't I been doing this?
Yep.
Because it's not painful. It's not painful for anyone. So the realtor's happy, the client is happy. They don't miss it, depending on, how much equity they have in their home. And usually the people that are using it have plenty of equity in their home that they're not going to miss the little staging charge, or the little bit of rehab that we asked to do at closing. You know what I mean?
Yep. I'll throw this out there too, because I think this is something that is invaluable and agents should be doing this. I think good agents should be having a Matterport tour done of a property before it was staged and before Damon and his team showed up, and then after. And I think that we should be able to share that with people as part of our, conversations with potential clients, consumers, and things like that, to be able to say, look, don't take my word for why this matters. Here's 2 links. Start with this link, take the tour, go upstairs, downstairs, look at all the rooms, and you tell me what you think, what it feels like moving through there, and then go to the next link and tell me what it feels like moving through this property after it's been done correctly. And you tell me which one feels like you might want to actually buy that. Which one do you want to go see? Which one of those 2 properties really feels more appealing to you as something that you want to take a deeper look at or engage in or could see yourself living in? Because I think, Damon, one of the most interesting things in this is, we don't mirror what other industries do. We tend to look at other industries as sort of, well, that's not our industry. But if you are going to go to a plastic surgeon, right? And I'm going to get and I need to have this done. I knew you were going to say it, Damon, but you were very kind not to say it, but I got to get the lower left done. I got to get these bags taken care of. Yeah. If I'm going to go to a plastic surgeon, every plastic surgeon under the sun, when you go to their website, what do they show you?
Yeah.
Before and after.
Yeah.
Why is our industry different? Why does this process, right? And why does it have to be static? Why does it have to be a photo difference? Right? We have 3D technologies now that people can move through full elements of properties. Let them feel what that's like, right? So I just think that's a really invaluable way to mix what you're saying with a value proposition to the agent community to be able to say, okay, well, sure, you don't want to pay for it. That's a thing. Go look at these 2 things and you tell me, if you put this in front of your client, which one would they want?
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head, and it reminds me of a couple stories. One, and this has happened several times with us. is we have actually staged a house that was virtually staged. And so homes that are virtually staged, we call the bait and switch. And
Mm.
so you look at it online and you're like, "Oh, wow, it looks pretty cool. Everything looks pretty nice." And then they actually, do a showing, arrive at the house, and it's empty. And so now what enticed them online to come into the house is now just empty rooms. And there is nothing worse that can happen to a realtor than a bait and switch, where you feel like you've been duped
Hmm.
as a client. And so that is one of the biggest things about actual staging is when they come in, they see real life size furniture and they understand, "Oh, I could put my television there. My kitchen is this wide with this furniture in it. I can move around the room about easily." Um, and so that happens a lot. And the other thing that happens to us often is when they do just list a, empty home and it's on I mean, I can't tell you, "This house was on the market for 90 days and nothing happened. Could you stage for us now?" "Sure." And then we come in and stage it, and literally it's under contract in 5 to 10 days. I mean, it's kinda like our average is right now, even in this very slow market, is 28 days. But for a while, our average was 8 days. And so, I mean, there is a definite positive difference for staging versus not staging and getting your house market ready, than not getting it market ready. And those are just, as you remind me of these things, it's kind of funny because now I can think of people. I'm like, wow, yeah, we don't know what the problem was. We just need to make people fall in love with your home.
Well, that's amazing. Damon, before we wrap up, I got a couple trivia questions for you because we love doing a little bit of trivia at the end. And don't worry, we're all judgment free in here, so you don't have to get them. You have to get them all right. But all right, a staged home can receive up to what percentage of more online views than an unstaged home? So, what percentage, right,
Yeah.
of online views does a staged home receive versus a not staged home?
My gosh, I don't know the percentage, but I would venture to guess
Okay,
85% more
85% more views.
of a staged versus unstaged.
Right. 10%.
Really?
So an unstaged home and a staged home gets 10% more views
Oh, okay.
than unstaged just by the photo alone.
Yeah, I can see that. I thought it would be more than that, actually.
And I again, the people that provide me my stats probably have been day drinking. So who knows? They could be completely wrong. You
I
never
thought it
know.
would be way more than that, but yes. We're a scrolling society now, so, empty room, next, empty room, next.
Well, and actually, I think what this is probably referencing, and you make a good point, isn't empty versus non-empty. I think this is like before the staging, after the staging type thing
Mhm.
into what percentage. But it's a good question. All right, so here's your next one. You ready? What percentage faster do stage homes sell compared to non-staged homes? What percentage faster does a staged home sell compared to a non-staged home?
I would have to say, uh, based on my experience, 60% faster.
Wow, 73% faster.
Yeah, yeah.
A staged home sells 73% faster. That is, I mean, with a statistic like that, why would you not?
Exactly, and then I didn't wanna sound crazy because I think our stats are even higher than that with our stagings.
Yeah, we're going national numbers here, so
Yeah, sure. No, but I see that because I mean, we have corrected so many blank listings and the real and then, of course, they become a client of ours forever because they're like, "Wow, this is like magic," and I'm like, "It works."
it is an amazing thing. Well, David, if you don't mind, just before I cut you loose, tell everybody where can they find you? How can we learn more about Damon, his company, family-owned business in Colorado? Where can we get more info on you?
Well, thanks. So my wife and I, Lisa Vaz, we own Vaz Interiors, and we can be found on Instagram at that Vaz Interiors, which is just VAZ Interiors, one word.
Okay.
And then our website is www.vazinteriors.com. And there you can go to our page and you can contact us for any free consultations or anything that you need for staging or design, interior design.
I love it. Damon, can't thank you enough, man, for taking the time to do this. Really, how often do I get to talk to a police sergeant that became an interior stager? I love it. Really, thanks so much, man, for being here. And again,
Thanks, Lance.
we'll put all of your info below in the show notes and in the links. Really, really amazing conversation. And I really hope that you continue to do all the great work that you and your family are doing.
We appreciate your time, and we appreciate you very much.